Well, good morning. I want to thank Jenny and Christy for inviting me to talk about funding from the military. Let me just start off by saying I am not a funding body, so don't expect, you email me and you're going to be applying to me directly. What I'm going to be talking about is unique opportunities that exist within the Department of Defense, educational opportunities, training opportunities, as well as grant opportunities. And so, funding it's a hard topic to talk about, right? It's not a sexy topic. It's not a very fun topic, especially now in the current state of affairs. But I'm hoping that I can bring some levity to it, and I hope I can bring some positivity, because I think there are some very unique opportunities that I actually discovered when I was preparing for this symposium that I wasn't aware of, and now I've missed that opportunity because I'm too far along in my career. But I think for trainees, this may be one opportunity. If you think you want to work for the Department of Defense, we have some pretty lucrative opportunities out there that could help you get a degree, build a career, and be very impactful and very successful. But as a Department of Defense employee, the first thing you have to understand is that anything I say is not actually backed up by the Department of Defense or the Army. These are my opinions and my opinions only. So there you go. So I've kind of sold my soul at this point. Okay, so what I was planning to do is I work for the U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, known as USAREUM, and get ready because the acronyms are going to be flying. I'm going to try to minimize those, but what I want to do is just give you a little bit of an overview of my institute so you can kind of understand a little bit, just get a little brief glimpse into what an Army lab kind of looks like. Talk about our military medical research overview. So that just means sort of what is our research portfolio in terms of medical research. This is more in my wheelhouse in terms of familiarity. Educational training opportunities. Then when I get to number 4, it's going to be a little bit of acronyms and just throwing a couple things out at you, but it's really to tell you that you're going to have to understand our language if you're going to be successful, and the best way to do that is going to be to collaborate with us. So I just want to throw a couple terms out there, talk about research funding opportunities, and then I'm going to give you a big slew of URLs and so forth that I don't have the slides in the booklet, but if anybody wants to email me, I will send you my slides, and that has a lot of resources that you can go to. Okay, so let's start out with my institute called the U.S. Army Research Institute of Environmental Medicine, USAREUM. So I am the chief of the Thermal and Mountain Medicine Division down here. Our institute consists of 4 divisions, and you can see the different areas that we study. We actually have very strong collaborations across our divisions, and we also have very strong collaborations with other labs within our material command. But the reason I wanted to put this up here is because we're all trained differently, right? We all have different disciplines, and I wanted to just point out, look at all of the different types of scientists that we have at our institute. These exist at institutes all throughout the Department of Defense and the Army, and so we're not unusual. We probably seem unusual to you, but we function almost identically to academia. We have to publish. We have to come to meetings. We have to present. We have to continue to build our resumes. We serve on APS committees. I'm on APS council. We do the same things that you do. We just do it under a different umbrella and with a different mandate. And our mandate is these guys and women, service members. That's who we serve. Not that our technologies aren't going to trickle down to the civilian community, but these are the people that we work with every day, side by side, and our goal is to get our medical solutions to them as rapidly as possible. So if that sounds appealing to you, working within the DoD or perhaps getting funding to do some DoD research may be where you need to go. We also have postdoctoral fellows. We have graduate students, although we're not actually functioning like a university in terms of we aren't necessarily have a lot of students that are getting PhDs within our institutes. It does exist, but it's fairly rare. And we can bring in undergraduate students by a mechanism called ORISE, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. So my division, the Thermal and Mountain Medicine Division, each of the divisions within the Department of Defense are going to have a mission, no different than industry, I realize, but our mission is to enhance physical performance of our service members. We want to optimize it. We want them to be superheroes, like the Comic-Con that was here earlier. So you're going to see some Comic-Con photos in here because I thought it'd be kind of fun to throw those in there. So, but we're not, so we're on the front side, right? We want to optimize performance, but we know that these men and women are going to push themselves really hard because they have a mission to do, and they are going to incur medical injuries. And so they're going to have medical problems. We need to know how to diagnose them. We need to know how to treat them so we can get them back to duty as soon as possible. So it really runs a full spectrum. We have exercise physiologists, we have clinicians on board, we have the full spectrum, and we all work together looking at our problems as an evolving spectrum. These are our research thrusts: heat, cold, and high altitude. We also work in hydration, and we work with protective equipment. So if we have pilots who have to wear this encapsulation in a hot environment, we need to understand how can we cool them, so we can have a cooling vest that they wear underneath their clothing. Then we assess how effective is that and what effect does it have on their physiological function. This test here is just looking at manual dexterity in the cold. We know that our service members, when they're out in the cold, are going to take their gloves off because they need to either load ammunition into a magazine or do some other type of fine motor dexterity skill, maybe just working with a computer or their iPhone. And so how do we keep their hands warm so they can continue to have that dexterity? And this is just a study that was being conducted at one of our labs up on Pikes Peak. We have unique facilities. This is not unique to Usarium, but I want to tell you a little story. When I was in graduate school, I always wanted to do behavioral assessments on rodents. That was my area of expertise with fever. And we couldn't afford the piece of equipment that I wanted to do, or that I needed in order to test up my hypotheses and do this study. One of the benefits of working with the Department of Defense is if you have a question that you want to ask that's militarily relevant, you're most likely going to get any equipment you need to answer that question. So contrary to what most people think about DoD research, it's actually very liberal in that sense, in that you have to study particular problems that the warfighters or the service members are facing, but they're going to give you all of the means that you need to do it, so you can do it very comprehensively and very integratively. To me, that's a strength, and that's really what's helped me to stay within the DoD, because it did not limit my curiosity at all. I want to mention that we also have animal labs. I just didn't have a photograph of them. This is a hypobaric chamber. We ran an Operation Everest 2 study many decades ago, in which we actually had individuals living in our hypobaric chamber, and we stimulated the top of Mount Everest, and they lived there for like 30 to 40 days or something, and we took all these measurements. Pretty cool stuff. Or a disabled sub. Hypobaric environment, we can simulate a disabled sub and take physiological measurements. We do biomechanics, so we can do that just on a treadmill, or we can do it in terms of the actual tasks that our soldiers are going to be forced to perform, right? So it's very applied, it's very integrated, and it goes from animal all the way up to human. And we also have military working dogs. So, I mentioned this earlier, this was number 2 or 3 on my list. This is just the portfolio of threats that we look at. So if you think that, and this is just the medical and materiel command. There are multiple commands. Here comes these acronyms are going to come out pretty soon. But I just wanted to show you the breadth of topics that, or research areas that we study. If you think any of these are of interest, then you may be able to find either an educational opportunity, a training opportunity, or perhaps funding that could help support this. DoD researchers love to collaborate because it just strengthens our ability to get solutions to our service members quicker. So it's not an insular environment. It's a very collaborative environment. We do it across industry, across university, and we have students and trainees of all different ranges. So please, I think there's a misconception with respect to that. This was my first Comic-Con picture. I thought it was awesome. These actually fold down. So I want to talk about a couple educational and training opportunities. I discovered these when I was getting ready for this presentation. So one of them is called the National Defense Science and Engineering Graduate Fellowship. This thing is amazing. So it's open to U.S. citizens and U.S. nationals. It's a 3-year competitive fellowship where you can go to any U.S. university that you want to conduct the research, as long as it's in the topics here, which I bet you can't see that very well. But basically, this is just a method that the DoD is using to make sure that our nation has the highest quality scientists and engineers, and so they're investing money in that. They're investing it in topics that are going to pay off for the DoD, but it allows you to get a degree. It gives full tuition, all fees, up to $34,000 a year, and medical insurance. You can also do it integrated, where you study multiple topics at the same time. And so I'm providing you the website so you can go there and see these different opportunities rather than spend too much detail on it. Another one is the SMART program. Has anybody heard of the SMART program? That's good. Okay, so a couple people. This is amazing. I mean, this is another instance where you can get an undergraduate or a graduate degree in science, technology, engineering, or mathematics, full tuition, fees, stipend, and when you get out, you have a job in the DoD. So you're going to school and you know you have a job when you get out. The qualifications for this are you have to be a citizen of the U.S., Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, I think that covers it. 18 years or older. You have to be in good standing, a 3.0 grade point average, and you get to do summer internships at DoD laboratories. Not a bad gig, right? And then, like I said, when you get out, you got a job. So the only key is you have to be focused in some of these areas down here that is very important to the Department of Defense. So, you know, if I had known this when I was younger, it might have been a potential to do that. If this even existed then, I don't even know if it existed. We do have some students at our university, at our institute that have taken advantage of this. One of the scientists in our nutrition division now went to the SMART program, is now, I'm not sure his official title, probably a research nutritionist, and he studies the microbiome, which is a very hot topic, right? Came to this meeting, gave presentations. So it's a very competitive program, and it produces very high-quality scientists. The last one I want to mention, there's some brochures out front, if they're still out there, is the ORISE program. And the reason I mention this is because this is a mechanism we now use to bring interns into the different universities within the DoD. And so this is, you can see, it's a range from undergraduate, graduate, recent graduates, postdoctoral fellows. We even bring back folks that have retired as knowledge preservation fellows and say, you know what, you've been working you've been working for the government for the last 30 years and you're going to walk away now and all that knowledge is going to go with you. We're going to bring you back as an intern and you can transfer that knowledge to us so we don't lose it. So we've been using this for the last 5 years or so. I have many ORISE students at this meeting that presented oral presentations, poster presentations. Basically what you do is you develop an individual development plan with your mentor for your educational goals. The whole idea is to provide you training, to get your resume built up so you can either remain within the DoD. In many instances, we have converted postdocs to full government civilians using this mechanism, or for you to go on and be successful outside of the DoD. We're okay with that too. I mean, you would then be stewards of the work that you performed at our lab, so it all pays off. But if you think that you're interested in doing a summer internship, or maybe you're getting ready to go to med school and you want to go somewhere for a year, this is how we would bring you in. And it does provide funds, a very lucrative stipend, along with training and travel and meetings, and you get to write papers and do all those other things. Okay, so that is my educational and training opportunities. I thought this was pretty rad here. Types of military research efforts. Okay, this is going to be a bunch of acronyms I'm going to throw at you, but you need to understand this because I've recently, I recently was a collaborator on funding for somebody at a university, and when they started to navigate just the broad agency announcement, the program announcement there, you know, they had no idea what they were reading because we just don't write like normal people write when in the DoD. So I'm going to just stay within my comfort zone. So our institute does basic research, applied research, which is basically mostly humans in well-controlled laboratory environments, and we do field experiments, we go out to training environments, and we do clinical research. So we do basic, applied, and what we call advanced development, so, or leads to advanced development. I want to describe to you what that is so it's of understanding. When we say basic research, when you start talking to your Army researchers, you're going to hear this term 6-1, 6-2, 6-3. You're not going to know what that is. I don't think I knew what it was for the first 8 years I was at the DoD. It's not really a joke. I really didn't understand it. Now I actually know what it means. But basic research is no different than all of us have done in our entire careers. It's just systematic study to gain knowledge, right? We just want to understand how do things work. You can't actually make a product that's going to go to our service members unless you can start at the very beginning and understand how things work. So we work that process just like everybody else does. But what's crazy about it is when you actually see a grant application or you go to apply for it, if you don't use the right terminology, which is these underlined ones here, they won't even look at it. I mean, many of us in the DoD makes mistakes like this all the time in just the work that we put forth to get our core funding. And so I don't want to go through this in detail. What I want to say is we use all of the animal models, the cell culture models, fish, everything that you guys use out there in academia and industry, we use the same models. We do the same stuff that you're doing, just with a different focus. And it's very overlapping in many ways, but his terminology is key. When we get to applied research now, we're talking about 6-2. So this is now when we've done some basic research and we're like, you know what, this looks promising, we want to transition it, we want to start studying it in a controlled laboratory environment in humans. Here's that dexterity study here and the microclimate cooling study. In this particular case, we're looking at sensors that we're putting on military working dogs so we can determine when are they actually going to collapse from exertional heat stroke. Or heat illness. And then here's our biomechanics. So, but look at, our words have changed now. So if you happen to use evaluate and you were applying for 6.1, they wouldn't even look at you. If you happen to use define and you're applying for 6.2, they're not going to look at you. So this, my point, my take-home point here is, not to memorize this ridiculousness, but to collaborate with those that are in the system, and we can help you to navigate it, because it is really confusing to not only to you but many times to us. When we then get to 6.3 research, it's called advanced technology development. We look at this as when we're starting to go out in the field now, right? So we've done controlled laboratory experiments. We got to say, well, if we actually go out in the field where they're doing their operations, which we can't put human research volunteers through that level of stress, does the technology still hold up? Anybody see the caffeine gum out there? So when we start to get to the point where we have products like this that get to our service members, or we have medical doctrine, this guide was also out on that table. So this is a heat injury protection guide or prevention guide. It's just something that the service member can put in his pocket, can pull out, and says, if I'm out in the heat, this is how I have to plan my mission because these are the work-rest cycles, or this is the risk that I have. This is the ultimate product. These are what we have to get out to the service member. When we get to this stage, what we're doing is we're validating that well, I better watch my words, we're evaluating whether or not our products are actually working for those out in the field. And then if they are, we're going to hand them off to the next entity that's going to take it and hopefully make it a product like this that can go into our service members' hands. So when we're thinking about doing research, we're thinking about widgets. It's an old term that we used to use, but products, something that we can get out there. That's always our goal. So it's probably a little bit different focus than you're used to, but we're all reminded of it because we're all sitting next to our service members and working with them every day in the lab. And so we realize we need to get something that ultimately is going to protect them. But the point here, terminology matters, and you need to collaborate to really understand it. Yeah, that was a cool one, right? Okay, so collaboration is critical. So now I want to talk about research funding opportunities for those who think they want to go to the DoD to try to get some funding. So I just want to explain how we get our funding. So again, there's another brochure out there that talks about the Army Medical Research and Materiel Command. I brought this because this is the command under which my laboratory works, I'm most familiar with. It's where we do our medical research. So that's this up here. So it's MRMC, another one of our acronyms. So this is how it works. So as an Army researcher, we get core funding, which is in the President's budget. He sends that down to the DoD. They send it down to all the different services, and then those services send it down to their individual labs. That's very simplistic. But so I have a guaranteed salary, I have a permanent job, and I'm going to get money to conduct research. I have to be competitive, I have to be productive, but I'm always going to have a job where I can do research. Right? But it might be limited. It may be that heat stroke, which is what I work on, isn't a particularly hot topic. You get that? But something else is, and so it changes over time, right? So, but this is just showing, and that's probably in that brochure. So once it gets to our Medical Research Materiel Command, then it'll go down to the Military Operational Medical Research Program, which is what I work under, and then they just disperse it out to the labs. But I might be limited. There might be other questions that I could answer if I could get additional funding. So what I will do then is go towards this non-core funding, which are just congressional line items that are added to our core budget that allow me to compete for funds now. Extra funds so I can expand my research program. So I want to describe two of those to you because this is where those of you further along in your career or even established investigators could collaborate with us to get funding. I'm doing that right now with a researcher at the University of Florida where he got, I don't remember the dollar amount, but he got a study to look at NSAIDs because every military member is taking NSAIDs, ibuprofen, Motrin, whatever it is, they're taking it, and they're taking more than one. And so he's actually got a study to look at whether or not new NSAIDs that are underdeveloped, that don't have the adverse gut reactions, can still be used by military members and still support their anti-inflammatory properties. So that's of interest to the civilians, that's of interest to us. I could not have conducted that. By collaborating with somebody, I can transition that product sooner than if I didn't have these additional funds. So, congressionally directed medical research programs. So this is basically somebody has gone to their congressman and they've said, I'm interested in this particular disease process. I want you to excuse me. Thank you. I would like you to put money towards it. So that it can be studied. And so there's a list on the website. This is what they're currently funding. So it's for a specific topic, but look at the funding level. Compared to NIH, that probably looks really sweet right there. It's about $0.5 to $1 billion per year for the entire program. And they asked me to talk about when we get this kind of funding, does it work the same way as other grants? It is direct and indirect costs. This is a situation where you wouldn't go here for any kind of educational opportunities. This isn't a situation where you're going to get tuition or anything like that. It's open competition, but what's really unique about it is that there are actually consumers on the review board. So they will review your proposal and bring you feedback. So you really have to be focused on, satisfying the consumer, satisfying the scientists, satisfying the DOD, and not the DOD, but the congressman in terms of the specific topic. Period of performance is up to 4 years. Here's the thing with the DOD, or their government, they're going to have very detailed oversight. They're going to visit your lab. You're going to have to do quarterly reports. So if you can handle that part, it might be a lucrative way to get some funding that could help get answers to these medical problems much quicker. The other one is the Defense Medical Research Development Program, which I've had success with over about the last 6 years. And so this is how I take my core funding and I plus it up. But when I'm plussing it up, what this is meant to do is serve not just the Army, but all of the services. So it's what we call joint service. So our little pointer here is dying. And it gets coordinated through these joint program committees. So I operate here. So I would go to the chair of this joint program committee 5 and say I'm interested in, they will have a line item of what they're looking for in terms of proposals. You put a pre-proposal in. They will then come back to you and say, we'd like you to put in a full proposal or not. And then again, it's just a regular grant, direct and indirect costs. Significantly smaller than the CDMRP that I showed you. The key to this is any research that goes through this mechanism has to be complementary to what we're already doing in our core program. So again, this is why you have to collaborate, because you wouldn't know that. But it's a complementary program, and it's very lucrative. It's very competitive, but not as much as NIH, that's for sure. All right, so the keys to a successful research application, I think I've pretty much pounded this home now, but you really need to understand our mission, our thrusts, our threats, our gaps, and this is going to be the one that's going to be the most confusing probably along the way. So the important thing to remember, and this isn't something that they communicate openly, but it's something I know from having used these programs, is they're not looking for somebody who's getting ready to start up a lab. That's not the goal, right? We're looking to get products to our service members. So if you're coming in and thinking, I'm going to put in a grant to get $300,000 to start up a new lab because I just got my first, full-time professor job, I'm an assistant professor position, that's not the way it works. What we're really looking for is somebody who is innovative, someone who can help provide rapid solutions, has a proven track record of success. It doesn't mean you have to have been an assistant professor or more than that, but if you collaborate, even as a postdoc, we can help you to continue to develop that. So again, strength in numbers, I think, is the important thing. And then finally, think non-traditionally. I think there are a lot of opportunities out there that people don't know about, they don't take advantage of. We have the same budget restrictions as other folks, right, because it comes down from the president, but we do have opportunities that a lot of people don't know about, and I don't think they're taking advantage of it, so there's probably funding there that's not actually being exhausted. And remember, what do you bring to the table? As I told you, we already have diverse research personnel within all of our institutes, and so you really need to be creative. And when you put in an application, when you call a potential collaborator, you got to say, what am I bringing to the military? Not why am I doing this for me? We want to help you, but we want to make sure that we're doing it to help the service members, which is our ultimate customer. Again, strength in numbers, and then always be looking to build your CV. We are dedicated to that, especially with that ORISE program. We want to see folks succeed. So we look at all of our students just as you would in academia, and we're constantly helping to develop that CV. I would not be the division chief in my institute now if my former division chief hadn't mentored me and done this for me. So, we're paying it back, essentially, is what we're doing, and we're happy to do it. So this is the online resources. So if somebody these are all the potential funding areas. There are probably more. And I can send this to anybody who wishes to send me an email for that slide. And then I see people are taking pictures, so I won't go to the next one, which just says, thank you very much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.